Hey guys, welcome to another movie review. Today I'm talking about the new James Wan horror film Malignant. This is a film that he pursued instead of Conjuring 3. Supposedly, Warner Brothers gave him more creative freedom with this movie, and this is something that he's had kind of in mind for a while, and it wasn't until 2021 where he finally got to release this movie. In Malignant, it's about a woman who has had an imaginary friend in her childhood. People kind of thought she was crazy as a kid. She didn't really have a lot of friends. And over the years, the whole imaginary friend thing kind of went behind her for a while. But it's not until her adult years where she kind of has a house of her own and things are kind of weirdly going bump in the night again. And crazy things are starting to happen. People are getting killed off one by one in this community that she lives in. And she's doing more research. She's finding out about these old home videotapes that have her talking to this imaginary friend from a long time ago. Certain things happen along the way. Research is found, things are discovered, and there's more to this imaginary friend than this woman realizes over the course of Malignant. So that's probably the best synopsis of this film I can give you guys without spoiling anything. This is a film where there's a lot of twists and turns in it. There's a big reveal in it. There actually is quite a few reviews already I've seen that did kind of spoil a couple of things already before I saw this film myself. So I want to make sure that I don't do the same to you guys where you go in completely clean. The twists are found out by yourself and yourself only and not by things that you heard on the internet. So I want to try to keep this as spoiler free as I can, but I also want to express the things that I enjoyed and maybe not so much enjoyed about Malignant overall as a movie itself. So overall, guys, I thought *Malignant* was a good movie. I thought there was a lot of things about it that were good creative risks for James Wan. I can personally see why he didn't want to do *Conjuring 3* because I'm sure there was more, like I said, creative freedom that he wanted to have here, more liberties he wanted to take, more unique directions that I'm sure a more mainstream film like this probably wouldn't be allowed to have in its budget. This time around, I do feel like he was kind of allowed to make the film that he wanted and things like that. And as a result, we get a film with a really good, unique results to it as well. So, for my positives and negatives of *Malignant*, I thought the overall character of Gabriel, who's the main villain of the film, the whole imaginary friend thing that this woman has, I thought the character of Gabriel was very unique. The more we discover about Gabriel, the more unique he is. I really think this is one of the more unique horror villains we've had in a long time. If a *Malignant 2* ever does get greenlit, I think probably the thing I would be the most excited about with a *Malignant 2*, if it ever were to get made, was the idea of what they could do more with the Gabriel character, what further directions they could take with the character. Very unique. The character can walk backwards and kind of has these super abilities. There's scenes that seem to suggest that it's a paranormal entity, but there's definitely much more to that. There's a lot of twists and turns along the way that definitely give this character a much more unique vibe than a typical James Wan film like this might provide. So I thought this was a very unique villainous character for a movie like this. The film definitely earns its R rating. It definitely earns its R rating for sure in the third act of the film. It definitely goes completely bonkers, completely off the walls, isn't afraid to show you the blood and gore, not afraid to get too crazy, not afraid to go into other genres that maybe we don't see from James Wan as often, such as drama, such as comedy, such as action. There's definitely some scenes here that kind of feel like something you would see in Underworld or The Crow. So there's a lot of unique things that happened in this movie and unique creative choices that definitely help the film earn its R rating, and it definitely deserves the R rating along the way as well. Another positive I have with the film is I do like how this film felt like a hybrid genre kind of movie. There is scenes that more suggest an action film. There's scenes that more so suggest a drama. And like I said, there's small hints every once in a while of scenes that suggest a comedy as well. So I do like how James Wan is able to kind of pull off this hybrid genre of a movie. So the scenes that do feel more action based than horror based, and so on and so forth, do feel like they're pulled off really well and feel like they all belong within the same movie. Another positive with the movie was I like the contemporary 80s feeling that James Wan went with. It does feel like something we would see in the 80s. It does kind of feel like something you would see in like Nightmare on Elm Street or The Exorcist or something along that line. It does kind of have that temporary 80s feeling. There's a lot of things about it that you don't see a lot of characters using, like smartphones and things like that. There's definitely more so films that you're more familiar with, like The Ring and things like that, working its way into this film and doing tropes that we're familiar with while also kind of creating something new. And it does create, like I said, a contemporary 80s horror film feeling as a result, and that I really enjoyed that James Wan pulled off for a vibe for this movie. I also like the story's use of family connections. The more we find out about Gabriel, the more interesting the character is. The use of how the family was impacted by Gabriel, the home videotapes, how the imaginary friend thing kind of escalated over the years, and how that was kind of the case, and how transitioning this woman into adulthood was kind of a tough challenge for certain family members in the story and things like that. There's a lot of things along the way that really keep the film intriguing and keep you guessing as the film progresses. But for my negatives of *Malignant*, first and foremost, and it's kind of a crime of any horror film to do this, I do think overall *Malignant* really isn't a very scary horror film. Maybe some really squeamish people that really get scared by easy things that maybe you see like maybe in a PG or PG-13 movie. I think people like that will probably get kind of a little creeped out by some of the stuff in here. But as far as comparing it to other James Wan films, because like for example, when I saw that first Conjuring film, I had a hard time sleeping for about 2 weeks. When I saw that first Insidious film, there was a lot of imagery in that film that definitely kind of kept me scared for a long time and made me afraid of experiencing those own images in real life and things like that. This time around, I felt like James Wan kind of toned that down a little bit too much, to the point where it almost kind of didn't feel like a horror film at times, just because there was a lot of scenes here that don't quite feel as scary as they should be. So I thought that aspect of the film was a little disappointing. I also thought the film was very slow moving at times. I understand if you want to create more of a slow burn effect for a film like this. I do feel like because the film is so fast paced in the third act and so bonkers in that third act, that the slow burn effect doesn't really work and pay off too well in this. So I thought the pacing of this film could have been better. This is also the first film in a long time where I thought the acting was a little subpar, specifically for a James Wan film. See, he normally has pretty good people work with him on his movies as far as actors and actresses go. Like Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga, for example. They gave really good performances in those Conjuring movies. I thought the acting this time around was a little subpar, though. Some of the actors and actresses kind of felt like they came from a soap opera. It really was kind of subpar from an acting perspective. So I thought that aspect of the film was a little disappointing. And once again, James Wan's other films seem to do a better job with this, I felt. And overall, I do feel like I do feel like the first Conjuring film is still James Wan's best movie. I think it's the best dramatically. It has the best scares. Has the best makeup effects. It just has the overall showcase of display of his talents. Like it really showcases his talents really well in that first Conjuring movie. So that one for me is kind of the holy grail of James Wan movies. Um, so I thought this film compared to the first Conjuring was a little subpar. I also thought even though the third act of the film is very bonkers, I almost felt like it was almost too bonkers for its own good. There's a lot of moments in that third act that really kind of feel like they're from all over the place, from all different kinds of movies. So I thought that third act was a little bit too bonkers for its own good. But overall, I'm going to give *Malignant* an 8 out of 10. I think it's a very good movie. I think there's really good things about it. Like I said, I would love to see a sequel involving the Gabriel character. Definitely earns its R rating. Definitely pulls off the whole hybrid genre thing really well. It does feel like it pulls from other genres really well, very easily and very smoothly, while still feeling like it's the same movie. The contemporary 80s feeling was very effective here. The story's use of family connections was really strong, but like I said, really not all that scary. A very slow-moving film at times. The acting is very subpar here. The film does get a little too bonkers for its own good in the third act. And like I said, I think Conjuring 1 is still my favorite of James Wan's films. I feel like it's kind of the best of all worlds of what he's capable of as a director. But I would still give *Malignant* an 8 out of 10. I would moderately recommend the movie, specifically for those who love horror films and love the work of James Wan. It's a good film. It's just not a great film. There's definitely some problems along the way, but I definitely like all the creative risks that James Wan tried out with it. And I do like we're getting kind of more original stories like this. So it's 8 out of 10 for me. I moderately recommend the movie, specifically for the character of Gabriel, a very unique horror film villain that we've had in a long time. So I would moderately recommend the film, specifically if you're a horror film fan.